But once I got there, I saw so much of the crew being Indigenous, deaf crew as well, and just how they were able to create a sense of a welcoming.
Tonight, a member of the Sagkeeng First Nation makes her acting debut in the Marvel Universe.
This work is never going to be complete. It's supposed to be a piece about kind of taking it and working on it whenever I have an exhibition.
A new exhibit in Whitehorse shows the cycles of loss, grief, and mourning.
The artwork is unbelievable in that book, and I think it really represents the communities up there, and and then the story behind it, and having the native languages in the book as well.
And a children's book of the first Indigenous commercial pilot from the Northwest Territories caught the eye of a famous country artist's charity. Good evening, I'm Savannah Kelly. Welcome to APTN National News. A recent report by a housing advocacy group says the houseless rates in Vancouver are expected to jump significantly if nothing gets done immediately. APTN's Tina House has this story.
It's got my backpack in it, my clothes, there's some blankets, food, utensils for eating, items for cooking on. And this one here, I think it's all my tent equipment.
We met Mark a few months back when police and city workers moved into Oppenheimer Park to remove people who are what the city calls illegally camping. But for those that have nowhere else to go, they call this park home. At the time, they only had him remove his tent during the day. Mark Menard is a trained and experienced heavy equipment operator, but has found it challenging to find an affordable place to rent in Vancouver. He also says that he hasn't been able to find work either because he constantly has to watch his belongings from getting stolen or thrown away by city officials. And just recently, that's exactly what city workers did.
It got to the point where they just kept taking my stuff. And it got to the point now when they came the last time, they took my bins and everything in them, my tarps, my tent, my blankets, my clothing, my food. I was left with one bag and a backpack, and that's it.
And with Vancouver now deemed the most expensive city to live in Canada, how are those on low income and facing multiple barriers able to afford to live here? The Carnegie Housing Project says houselessness could jump by 50% by 2030 if swift action isn't taken immediately.
Stopping the loss of modular housing by either finding new sites or extending the leases on the current sites in the city, so we're not actually losing housing as we desperately need it. Stopping the loss of SROs to rents by implementing vacancy control in SROs, changing the definition of social housing to one that actually includes shelter rate, which is people that need the housing the most.
The city has 860 units of modular housing. 144 of them are boarded up in the middle of a housing crisis. The ones behind us, 39 more, we don't know where they're going to go, but those people are being evicted now. So the city needs to find sites for all of the modular housing.
And with these modular housing sites originally temporarily set up on city-owned lots that weren't in development at the time, Swanson and other advocates say action needs to be taken immediately. The City of Vancouver provided the following statement. There are no new temporary modular housing sites underway. The TMH program was always intended to be temporary as the city prioritizes permanent housing solutions. The original license terms vary by location. When a lease of a city site approaches expiry and the license cannot be extended due to pending redevelopment or the site or bylaw limitations, BC Housing and the operator work together to relocate residents to other affordable supportive homes. However, Devin O'Leary says, despite the assurances from the city, he says things aren't moving ahead in his opinion.
Things have been made invisible, I would say, and the harm is definitely higher. It's always stressful for people that are being displaced. There hasn't been any sort of indication of more housing and any care really for that. So yeah, it hasn't gotten any better.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
We want to hear what you think about the growing number of people without homes in Vancouver and across Canada. Here's how to continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Actor, writer, and all-around cool girl Katarina Ziervogel made her acting debut in the recently released Marvel miniseries Echo. Our reporter Sav Jonza met up with Ziervogel to discuss her success and dreams for the future. Here they are with more.
Katarina Ziervogel is becoming well known as the actor who played Taloa, the deaf mother of the title character in the Marvel miniseries Echo. Deaf and Indigenous representation are at the heart of the show. Through an ASL interpreter, Ziervogel spoke with APTN about her experience in the entertainment industry so far.
I think that, having interpreters in the industry has been paramount for me, and just making sure that the needs and the accommodations are heard and what people need for that. Like, even thinking about when I was working on the set for Echo, they had like lights in my dressing room, so like somebody would hit a doorbell, but it would flash a light so I would know somebody was coming in. So I think actually they gave a great example of providing accessibility. Even the cast and the crew all learned some sign language.
Ziervogel is Mohawk, Ojibwe, and German, and is a member of Sagkeeng First Nation in Manitoba. She says at first she was quite nervous about being on such a big production for the filming of Echo.
Apprehensive. But once I got there, I saw so much of the crew being Indigenous, deaf crew as well, and just how they were able to create a sense of a welcoming, feeling. I felt included. That really helped to alleviate a lot of those apprehensions, because I am part of both of those communities, right? Deaf and Indigenous.
Ziervogel holds many talents in the industry. Aside from acting, she also co-wrote her first feature film, Finality of Dusk, which came out last year. It focuses on a post-apocalyptic world with a deaf antagonist. She says she hopes to work in a writer's room in the future.
I'd love to do a TV show. I love to write anything, really. Graphic novels, I'd love to do books, I'd love anything, any type of media. I'd love to do some animation, but having kind of a bent of sci-fi, right? Because I love the sci-fi genre. It's one of my favorites.
Ziervogel attributes her interest in the film and television industry to her mother and stepfather. They also work in the industry and showed Ziervogel the power of Indigenous representation. Though being deaf and Indigenous are important parts of Ziervogel's identity, she says she is more than just that.
Like the fact that I'm a big sci-fi nerd. I love to play video games. I love reading. I love being in nature, going camping, and that's a huge part of who I am too. So, and I'd just like to have people see me as those parts are part of me too, right? And that all of those things make up who I am. And to really get to know who I am, those are all really important parts in all different areas that you should know. Instead of just thinking as, we're all kind of the same, or it's kind of hard to explain, but we all have different parts.
Sav Jonza, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Explain themselves, like what had happened in the past.
We need to step aside for a short break. Coming up, we'll tell you how a children's book about a Gwich'in pilot caught the eye of Dolly Parton's Children's Imagination Library.
This is kind of cool though. Fred was written up in Time magazine, the same one with the man on the moon back in July 1969. How cool is that?
Welcome back to APTN National News. Canada's first Indigenous commercial pilot from the Arctic has made a name for himself over the years. Freddie the Flyer Carmichael now has a children's book under his wing, and it's captured the attention of Dolly Parton's Children's Imagination Library. Carly Schogner has this story.
Back of the plane, the tail wings, they control which way the plane will go up or down.
Cooper Lenny is an elementary school student in Inuvik. He's interested in airplanes and people who fly them, especially Freddie the Flyer Carmichael, the first Indigenous commercial pilot in the Arctic. Cooper and others are featuring Freddie in the year's February Wisdom Fest, showcasing kids' interests.
I got inspired by planes flying overhead. At my cabin in the summer, when we heard a plane flying by, I wonder how fast it was going.
Freddie and his planes are known across the Mackenzie Delta, from the airport in his hometown of Klavik to Inuvik on murals, and one of his planes can be seen as you drive into town.
Why is airplanes important in this region, in the Arctic?
Because there's like a lot of water, and since there's a lot of ice and snow that can block up the roads, you need like planes to get to places.
Freddie lives near Inuvik. He'll be 89 in May. Park Gwitchin. Freddie grew up in the bush and in Aklavik. With little education, he earned his pilot's license in 1955 when he was 20. He went on to establish a few businesses of his own, including a flying service to help manage caribou herds.
This is all reindeer, right?
Yeah.
This happened on Shell Lake.
Freddie's wife, Mickey, has been with him along this journey.
This is kind of cool, though. Fred was written up in Time magazine, the same one with the man on the moon back in July 1969. How cool is that?
Over the decades, Freddie has been awarded the Order of Canada and is part of Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame. He also has an honorary Doctor of Laws from the University of Saskatchewan. Published in October, a Canadian author and an Inuvialuit artist, originally from the Arctic region, partnered with Freddie in creating a children's book, which includes both Gwich'in and Inuvialuitan languages.
This is the Dolly Parton. We just got it yesterday.
Most recently, the book has been added to the list of country singer Dolly Parton's charity, Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which gives books to kids up to 5 years old. Some 53,000 children from over 400 communities across Canada are part of this program.
No, you're a very humble guy, but I think your story can help kids, and that's the whole idea, is to help kids follow their dreams.
If you're interested in an airplane, then you're trying your best to find some money and some people that will help you, and stuff.
Freddie found school hard in the big city, but he loved flying more than anything, and his teachers helped him.
He became a wizard at reading the weather and fantastic at fixing things. He earned his pilot's license and flew home in his very own plane. Now that is just so cool, especially back in those days, right?
That's Bobby Jo Greenland Morgan. She was at the Inuvik October book launch, packed with people standing up to share stories of how Freddie helped them across the communities.
I say that growing up in Aklavik, we're very proud of Freddie and many others of his age generation who were trailblazers in many ways. They were an inspiration to us, and many people have gone on to succeed because of them.
And mentioning that his teachers helped him, right? Like, that's the thing about achieving goals, there's always someone that's going to help us, that wants to help us, if we allow them to help us. And that's how we succeed.
Freddie's legacy is more than just as a pilot. She followed in Freddie's footsteps as President Grand Chief of the Gwich'in Tribal Council, the first woman to be elected to this role for a term starting in 2016.
I read this one where it talks about how Freddie waves his wings at people in their bush camps below as they fished and gathered berries, always keeping an eye out in case someone needed help. And I like this because, I know hearing a lot of stories of people out at bush camps, that was a common thing that Freddie did. Being a true leader is something you demonstrate through your whole life. And that's what I seen in Freddie, and that's why I have such respect for him. He was true to his roots and who he was and how he was raised and values of caring for others. I pass that plane every day when I'm going out to work, and I think about that. I think, just the memories that my dad shared about that, and the different people across the Mackenzie Delta that he's helped, that he's rescued, that he's helped in some way as a pilot and a good bush pilot, right? Traveling and flying in weather and circumstances that most pilots would refuse to do.
Freddie the Flyer will be distributed in July to homes across Canada through the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, says the director.
The artwork is unbelievable in that book, and I think it really represents the communities up there, and then the story behind it, and having the native languages in the book as well. One of the things that really inspired Dolly was the fact that her dad could not read or write, and she really saw how he was limited by that fact.
Because if you can read, you can teach yourself anything.
Families can sign up for free online or at regional libraries or daycare centers. Carly Schogner, APTN National News in Nuvik.
We need to take one more short break. Still to come, we'll tell you why a AAA hockey team in northern Manitoba is breathing a sigh of relief. Plus, a First Nation artist from the Yukon is channeling her personal experiences with grief and loss into a new art exhibit.
The tent itself is a metaphor for talking about grief, especially around substance use disorder.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Clarence Jones was able to capture a quick photo of an eagle resting on top of a hydro pole. We always enjoy photos sent in to us by Clarence. Thank you for watching. We want to see your photos as well. Send those pics to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over on the East Coast, 5 degrees and rainy in Halifax, 7 degrees for Charlottetown. Nain, snowy and -9 there. Le Grand River, -12. Saint-Gilles, 14 degrees there, as well as Montreal. Toronto, a balmy 17 degrees and rainy. North Bay, +5. Kapuskasing, sunshine and 4 degrees there. Big Trout Lake, snowy, -9. Churchill, -20. Thompson, snowy and -15. Gimli, Winnipeg, Princess Harbor, Barons River, -10. Regina, snowy and -17 there. North Battleford, -20. Stony Rapids, snowy and -16. Meadow Lake, sunshine and -16 as well. Snowy and -9 for Grand Prairie, -15 in High Level. Red Deer, snowy and -10 there. Lethbridge, -10 and sun. Vancouver, 6 degrees and sunny there. Bella Coola, +4. Fort Nelson, sunshine, -13. Sandspit, 3 degrees. Watson Lake, sunshine and -17. Rock River, flurries, -21. Wati, -20 and sunshine. Norman Wells, snowy and -13. Paulatuck, sunshine, -28. Fort McPherson, -20. Baker Lake, snowy and -20. Now Yet, -24. Clyde River, sunshine, -31. And Iqaluit, -29. Grief and loss, something we all experience. Now a First Nation artist from the Yukon is channeling her personal experiences with grief, loss, and mourning through a new art exhibit in Whitehorse. Here's Sarah Connors with a look. Apologies, we brought you the wrong pack there. Continuing on, Ganawage multidisciplinary artist MC Snow has a new exhibition at the McCord Stewart Museum located in downtown Montreal. Presence of the Past is an installation that immerses the viewer in a space adorned with artifacts from the museum's Indigenous cultures collection. The artist drew inspiration from 40 objects from the collection to create 2 original sculptures placed at the center of the exhibit. The objects surrounding the sculptures date back to the 14th century and are mostly of Mohawk origin. Snow said that the display aims to underscore the importance of research and preserving Indigenous cultural property. The exhibit is presented as part of the Contemporary Native Art Biennial and will be showcased until August 18th.
The communities from where these found objects came from, and they sort of it just kind of evolved into showing the pieces, picking the pieces that I wanted to show, and creating the new pieces to create that story of rediscovering, holding on to the past, having it, and then what do you do with it?
A wildlife survey in a remote inland part of Western Australia has uncovered dozens of new animal and bird species never before recorded in the area. With more on that, here are our friends from NITV in Australia.
When you get out to places like Yalgoo, you realise just how remote some areas of our country are. So it's hardly surprising that scientists and researchers are uncovering bird and animal species that they haven't recorded before.
Being on Buddy My Country, we just like to know what's out there. We want to look after the country as well. We like to know what's there, what's in that area around our sites and that.
We do these biological surveys because so like the rangelands and most areas are, typically under-surveyed. So we don't know what we don't know, and this helps us to catalogue what species we have.
The area is jointly managed by the local Aboriginal Corporation and the Department of Biodiversity and Conservation, with rangers and researchers using pitfall trapping to capture the animals.
Have your little critters walking across the landscape, little hopping mice, geckos, and they come along and they hit the fence and they walk along the fence and they fall into the pitfall. And so we come and collect them and identify them, and then we safely release them back into the environment.
39 different species were trapped during the week-long expedition. 24 of them had not been previously recorded in the area, including a mallee fowl, which is at risk of extinction in WA and critically endangered in other parts of Australia. Lance King admits it can be hot, hard work at times, but says he wouldn't change a thing.
It's the best job I've ever had, being out on country and working there, and more or less living out there most of the time. I'm just learning a lot more about the country from the elders and that around there, buddy my elders. So there's lots for me to learn yet through that and through DBCA and looking after country and biodiversity and all the rest of it.
Cameron Gooley, NITV News.
And that's all the time we have for your Monday news. We'll be sure to circle back and bring you that story about Teresa Vandermeer's exhibit tomorrow on APTN National News. For news anytime, visit our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Savannah Kelly. Marcy, Miigwech, thank you for joining us. Take care and have a great night.